Stop. Before you keep scrolling, I need you to look at something. Not at your phone, not at this screen. I need you to look at your last 3 meals. Really think about them. What was in them? Where they came from? How they made you feel an hour after you finished eating? Now I want you to picture a man named Eli. Eli is 76 years old. He woke up at 4:30 this morning. By 6 a.m., he had already fed his livestock, repaired a fence, and eaten breakfast with his family. By noon, he had done more physical work than most 35-year-olds do in a full week. He didn't take a pre-workout. He didn't drink a protein shake. He has never seen the inside of a GNC. Eli is Amish, and Eli will probably outlive most people watching this video. Here's the question nobody is asking. Why? Because the answer is sitting right on his kitchen table.
The modern world has spent the last 100 years making food faster, cheaper, and more convenient. And in doing so, it quietly stripped out everything that made food powerful in the first place. Enzymes, beneficial bacteria, fat-soluble vitamins, minerals, collagen, fermentation. The slow, patient preparation methods that turned raw ingredients into something the human body could actually use. The Amish never made that trade. They still eat the way their great-grandparents ate. And their bodies, their strong, durable, long-working bodies, reflect exactly that.
Today, we're going through 17 of those foods. Not as a history lesson, not as a nostalgia piece, as a practical guide to what your body has been missing and what you can start doing about it this week. By the time we reach food number 10, you're going to feel something, a kind of quiet anger, the realization that the answers were never complicated. They were just buried. Let's dig them up.
The Amish dietary tradition draws from 3 deep roots: centuries of Central European peasant cooking, biblical principles around food and stewardship, and the practical demands of farming life where your physical output tomorrow depends entirely on what you eat today. They are not health-obsessed. They don't count macros. They don't follow trending diets. They simply eat what they grow, prepare it the way their grandparents showed them, and trust a system that has been refined over hundreds of years of lived human experience.
And researchers who've studied Amish communities have found something remarkable. Despite physically demanding lives and no access to modern preventative medicine, they show significantly lower rates of cardiovascular disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and several cancers compared to surrounding populations. The difference is not mysterious. It's on their plate. Food 1. Raw, whole milk. Let's start with the one that will make some people uncomfortable. Because if you were raised in the modern food system, you were taught, firmly, repeatedly, that this was dangerous, unsafe, something only reckless people consumed. The Amish drink milk straight from the cow, unheated, unprocessed, exactly as it comes. And they've been doing it for 200 years without the catastrophic consequences we were promised.
Raw whole milk, unhomogenized, unpasteurized, is biologically a living food. It contains active lactase, the enzyme responsible for breaking down lactose. It contains lactobacillus bacteria that seed and support the gut microbiome. It contains immunoglobulins, immune proteins, that pasteurization significantly reduces. And it contains fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K2 in their most bioavailable forms, because they're carried in the full-fat matrix the way nature intended. Here is the detail that changes everything for millions of people. Most individuals who believe they are lactose intolerant are not intolerant of milk. They are intolerant of processed milk. The enzyme that digests lactose is present in raw milk. The milk effectively helps digest itself. That enzyme is destroyed at pasteurization temperatures. A landmark study published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology following over 14,000 European children found that those raised on raw farm milk had dramatically lower rates of asthma, hay fever, and allergic sensitization compared to children consuming conventional milk.
The Amish drink it with meals. They culture it into kefir, a fermented milk drink with 30 to 50 distinct probiotic strains. They make butter, hard cheeses aged in cellars, and clabber, naturally soured milk that functions as a probiotic food in its own right. Every form, every day. And the chronic immune dysfunction and digestive disorders that have become normal in modern life remain largely foreign to them. Food 2. Lard. For half a century, we were at war with fat, animal fat specifically. We replaced lard with vegetable shortening, replaced butter with margarine, replaced tallow with canola oil, and we called it progress. Meanwhile, heart disease became the #1 killer. Obesity became an epidemic. Metabolic syndrome exploded into a global health crisis. The Amish kept cooking with lard. Their heart disease rates stayed low. Someone was wrong, and it wasn't the Amish.
Lard, properly rendered pork fat, has a fatty acid profile that is approximately 45% monounsaturated fat. That's the same category as olive oil, the fat Mediterranean diet researchers have spent decades praising. It contains a meaningful amount of vitamin D in a form the body readily absorbs. And critically, it has a high smoke point, around 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it does not oxidize and form free radicals at normal cooking temperatures the way polyunsaturated seed oils do. This matters enormously. When vegetable oils, canola, soybean, sunflower, corn, are heated past their smoke point repeatedly, they generate lipid peroxides and aldehydes. These compounds are directly implicated in the vascular inflammation that underlies cardiovascular disease. The oils that replaced lard in the name of heart health may have done the opposite.
The Amish render their own lard from pasture-raised pigs. They store it in crocks. They use it to fry, to bake biscuits, to season cast iron that gets passed down through generations. Not as indulgence, as nutrition, as fuel. The way fat always was before an industry convinced us to be afraid of it. Food 3. Lacto-fermented vegetables. The global probiotic supplement industry is worth over $60 billion. $60 billion. For pills and powders that most researchers agree have limited survivability through stomach acid and inconsistent colonization rates in the gut. Meanwhile, in Amish basements, there are crocks of something that delivers more live beneficial bacteria per tablespoon than most probiotic supplements deliver per entire bottle. And it costs almost nothing to make.
Lacto-fermented vegetables, sauerkraut, naturally fermented pickles, fermented beets, are made through wild fermentation using only vegetables, salt, and thyme. The salt suppresses harmful bacteria while allowing lactobacillus species, already present on the vegetables, to multiply rapidly in the anaerobic brine environment. The result is a food dense in live cultures, organic acids, B vitamins including folate, increased bioavailable minerals, and enzyme activity that supports digestion. Research consistently shows that the gut microbiome is the central regulator of immune function, mood via the gut-brain axis, metabolic efficiency, and inflammatory status throughout the body. 1 tablespoon of unpasteurized raw sauerkraut contains billions of colony-forming units. Commercial sauerkraut in cans or pasteurized jars contains 0. The heat kills every living organism in the jar.
The Amish eat fermented vegetables with almost every meal. Not as a side dish they feel obligated to finish, as a core part of the plate, because at some intuitive generational level, they understood that the stomach is the foundation. Feed the gut correctly, and the rest of the body follows. Food 4. Bone broth. Modern butchery throws away fortunes. The bones, the cartilage, the knuckles, the feet. Everything that doesn't look like a clean, marketable cut gets discarded or processed into pet food. The Amish take those worthless parts and turn them into one of the most deeply nourishing substances the human body can receive.
Long-simmered bone broth, 12 to 24 hours at low heat with a splash of apple cider vinegar to draw minerals from the bone matrix, is extraordinarily rich in collagen, which breaks down into gelatin and then into its constituent amino acids, glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline. Glycine is conditionally essential. Your body produces some but rarely enough for optimal function. It is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter precursor in the brain stem and spinal cord, meaning it directly supports sleep quality and nervous system regulation. Research published in Sleep and Frontiers in Neurology has associated glycine supplementation with significant improvements in sleep onset, sleep quality, and daytime cognitive function. Glycine is also critical to glutathione synthesis, your body's master antioxidant, and supports liver detoxification pathways. Proline and hydroxyproline are the structural amino acids of collagen itself, supporting joint cartilage, gut lining integrity, and skin structural protein.
Leaky gut, intestinal permeability, is now considered a root contributor to autoimmune disease, food sensitivities, chronic inflammation, and mental health conditions. Gelatin-rich bone broth is one of the most evidence-aligned dietary interventions for repairing that permeability. The Amish didn't have a name for leaky gut. They just knew that a bowl of good broth fixed things. And they were right.
Make it this week: roast beef knuckles or chicken carcasses at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. Transfer to a large pot. Cover with cold water. Add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Bring to a bare simmer. Cook 12 to 24 hours. Strain and store. Drink it warm, use it as a cooking base, or freeze in portions.
Food 5. True sourdough bread. Bread has been the foundation of human civilization for 10,000 years. Every culture, every continent, every era. Bread. And for almost all of that time, bread was made the same way. Slowly. With wild yeast. Over many hours. Then commercial yeast was invented. Then industrial baking. Then bread went from a 2-day process to a 2-hour process. And millions of people who never had digestive problems began to react to bread like it was poison. It wasn't bread they were reacting to. It was what bread had become.
Authentic sourdough bread is leavened by a starter culture, a living community of wild yeast and lactobacillus bacteria maintained over years or decades. During a 12 to 24-hour fermentation, several critical transformations occur. Phytic acid, an anti-nutrient in grains that binds to zinc, iron, magnesium, and calcium and prevents their absorption, is largely broken down by the acidic fermentation environment. This means minerals in sourdough are genuinely bioavailable in a way that minerals in conventional bread are not. Gluten proteins are partially predigested by protease enzymes produced during fermentation. Multiple studies have shown that individuals with non-celiac gluten sensitivity tolerate long-fermented authentic sourdough without the symptoms triggered by commercial bread. The glycemic index of true sourdough is significantly lower than commercial bread. The organic acids produced during fermentation slow glucose absorption, producing a sustained energy curve rather than the spike and crash of standard bread.
Amish families maintain sourdough starters that are decades old. Some starters have been in continuous use for generations, fed weekly, baked with regularly, passed to children when they form their own households. They are not maintaining a health trend. They are maintaining a living inheritance. 5 foods. 5 reasons to be deeply skeptical of everything the modern food industry told you. And we're just getting started. Because what's coming next? Foods 6 through 11 includes the single most nutrient-dense food on Earth, a fat that your arteries actually need, and a morning staple the Amish have eaten for 200 years that modern neuroscience is only now catching up to. Don't move.
Food 6, pasture-raised whole eggs. For 30 years, the egg yolk was treated as a dietary villain. Doctors told patients to eat egg whites only. Cholesterol fears drove people to throw away the most nutritionally significant part of the egg. That recommendation has now been quietly, substantially walked back by the very institutions that issued it. A pasture-raised egg yolk contains choline, a nutrient essential for acetylcholine synthesis, cell membrane integrity, and liver fat metabolism. Over 90% of Americans are estimated to be choline deficient. The symptoms of choline deficiency include brain fog, poor memory, fatty liver, and muscle damage. 2 egg yolks provide roughly half of the daily adequate intake of choline. The yolk also contains lutein and zeaxanthin, carotenoids that concentrate in the macula of the eye and represent the primary nutritional defense against age-related macular degeneration. Vitamin A in its preformed, directly usable retinol form. Vitamins D, E, and K2. And yes, cholesterol, which is the precursor molecule for every steroid hormone your body produces: testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, and DHEA.
The Amish eat whole eggs from chickens that scratch in pastures, eat insects, and live the way chickens were designed to live. The nutrient density of those eggs compared to commercial eggs is not a minor difference. Research shows pasture-raised eggs contain up to 3 times more vitamin D, twice the omega-3 fatty acids, and dramatically higher levels of fat-soluble vitamins than conventional supermarket eggs. They eat them every morning, fried in lard, on sourdough bread, with raw butter. And they are well. While America was spreading margarine on toast and congratulating itself on avoiding saturated fat, something was quietly happening inside millions of arterial walls. Calcium was accumulating. Arteries were stiffening. Bones were weakening, even in people with adequate calcium intake. The missing variable wasn't calcium. It was the nutrient that tells calcium where to go.
Vitamin K2, found in meaningful amounts in raw grass-fed butter, hard cheeses, organ meats, and fermented foods, is the biological traffic director for calcium in the body. In the presence of sufficient K2, calcium is deposited into bone and teeth. In its absence, calcium accumulates in soft tissues, arteries, and kidneys. Arterial calcification is now recognized as one of the strongest predictors of cardiovascular events. Raw grass-fed butter is also one of the primary dietary sources of butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that is the preferred fuel source for colonocytes, the cells lining your colon. Butyrate has direct anti-inflammatory effects on the gut lining, is associated with reduced colorectal cancer risk, and supports the tight junction integrity that prevents intestinal permeability.
The Amish churn butter from raw cream. They eat it without measuring, without guilt, without the anxious calorie arithmetic that characterizes so much of modern eating. And their bones remain dense, and their joints remain functional into ages that would make most modern adults deeply envious. Food 8. Organ meats, especially liver. This is the most nutritionally powerful food on this entire list, and it is also the food that modern food culture has most thoroughly abandoned. Every traditional culture on Earth prized organ meats. Everyone. The Plains tribes gave hunters the liver raw before anything else was touched. The Norse, the Celts, the Chinese, the Japanese, all built their most restorative dishes around organs. The Amish still do. And somewhere between 1950 and now, the developed world decided it was disgusting. That decision has consequences.
Beef liver is, calorie for calorie, the single most nutrient-dense food that exists on Earth. There is no supplement, no superfood powder, no exotic berry that comes close. A single 4-ounce serving of beef liver provides over 700% of the daily value for vitamin B12, which is essential for nerve function and red blood cell formation. Over 500% of vitamin A is preformed retinol. Substantial amounts of folate, copper, iron in its most bioavailable heme form, zinc, selenium, CoQ10, the enzyme critical to mitochondrial energy production and cardiovascular health, and every single B vitamin simultaneously. Chronic fatigue, brain fog, persistent anemia, poor immune function, slow wound healing, low mood, the deficiencies that drive each of these symptoms are precisely the deficiencies that one weekly serving of liver corrects.
The Amish prepare it simply, soaked in milk for an hour to mellow the flavor, then fried in lard with caramelized onions. Salt, pepper. Nothing else needed. It doesn't need to be complicated. The most powerful things rarely are.
Food 9. Slow-cooked heirloom beans. Beans soaked overnight and cooked slowly for hours are nutritionally unrecognizable from canned beans heated quickly and eaten on a Tuesday with no thought given to preparation. Heirloom legumes, navy beans, Jacob's cattle beans, rattlesnake beans, dried lentils, prepared the traditional way undergo a chemical transformation during soaking and slow cooking. Phytic acid is reduced. Lectins, proteins that can cause gut irritation in their raw form, are deactivated. Resistant starch develops, which feeds bifidobacterium and lactobacillus species in the colon, producing the butyrate we mentioned with butter. The resulting food provides slow-release complex carbohydrates, substantial plant protein, soluble fiber that lowers LDL cholesterol, and a dense array of B vitamins and minerals, particularly folate, magnesium, and potassium.
The Blue Zone's research, the most comprehensive longevity study ever conducted across multiple populations, identified beans as the single most consistent food across every long-lived community on Earth. Sardinians, Okinawans, Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, Costa Ricans in the Nicoya Peninsula, all eating beans every day. The Amish didn't need a research team to reach that conclusion. They just needed their grandmothers. Food 10. Blackstrap molasses. This one surprises people every time, because when we think of sweeteners, we think of empty calories, sugar, high fructose corn syrup, things that take from the body rather than give. Blackstrap molasses is the exception. The dark, viscous byproduct that gets separated out when sugar is refined to white was considered a nutritional staple for centuries before cheap white sugar made it unfashionable.
2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses contain approximately 20% of the daily value for iron, 15% for calcium, 18% for magnesium, 16% for potassium, and meaningful amounts of vitamin B6, copper, and manganese. It is a mineral delivery vehicle disguised as a sweetener. Magnesium deficiency alone is now estimated to affect between 50 and 80% of adults in developed countries. The symptoms are wide-ranging and often misattributed: chronic muscle tension, poor sleep, anxiety, constipation, elevated blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, and fatigue. Magnesium is a cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body. Its deficiency is not a minor inconvenience.
The Amish bake with molasses. They stir it into porridge. They mix it into livestock feed because they understand instinctively that mineral-dense sweeteners build strong bodies, while mineral-void sweeteners hollow them out. They sweeten their food with something that simultaneously rebuilt what daily life depleted. We replaced it with something that depletes faster. Food 11. Nettle and herbal tea as daily medicine. The Amish don't drink soda. They're not reaching for 4 cups of commercial coffee before noon. They're not buying energy drinks. Their daily beverage rotation is water and herbal teas, made from plants they grow or forage, drunk throughout the day with intention. And that quiet habit is doing more for their mineral status and nervous system than most people's supplement regimens.
Stinging nettle tea is the standout. Nutritionally, nettle is astonishing. It contains bioavailable iron, calcium, magnesium, potassium, silica, and vitamins A, C, and K. Drunk daily as a strong infusion, 1 ounce of dried leaf steeped in a quart of hot water for 4 hours, it provides a mineral matrix that supports bone density, hair growth, skin integrity, kidney function, and adrenal health simultaneously. Lemon balm tea calms the nervous system without sedation. Chamomile modulates cortisol and supports digestive motility. Peppermint stimulates bile flow and aids fat digestion. Elderflower supports respiratory mucus clearance. None of these teas are dramatic. None of them produce immediate, jarring effects. But consumed daily, over months and years, they create a physiological environment that is measurably different from the inflammation-driven baseline that most modern people accept as normal.
Every cup is quiet medicine, accumulated over a lifetime. That's the part the supplement industry can't sell you, because consistency and patience don't fit in a bottle. Food 12. Stone-ground cornmeal and whole grain porridge. Amish men do not eat breakfast from a box. They do not pour processed cereal into a bowl at 7 a.m. and wonder why they're exhausted by 10. They sit down to real, cooked, hot food, prepared before sunrise, that fuels 8 to 10 hours of serious physical output.
Stone-ground whole grain porridges, cornmeal mush, slow-cooked oats, buckwheat groats, rye porridge, retain the entire grain kernel, bran, germ, and endosperm. This means they deliver B vitamins, vitamin E, magnesium, zinc, and fiber that is entirely absent from refined grain products. The slow cooking process partially breaks down the starch structure, lowering glycemic load and producing a gradual glucose curve that sustains energy for hours without triggering the insulin spike and subsequent crash of processed carbohydrates. Buckwheat specifically, not a grain at all but a seed, contains rutin, a bioflavonoid that strengthens capillary walls and has demonstrated blood pressure-lowering effects in clinical research.
There's a reason Amish men can build a barn in a day. There's a reason Amish women can cook, clean, tend animals, manage a household, and raise children simultaneously without chronic fatigue becoming their identity. They started the day with real fuel, the kind that actually lasts.
Food 13. Raw honey in cooking and fermentation. Commercial honey is primarily sugar. It has been heated to temperatures that destroy every enzymatic and antimicrobial compound it contains, filtered to remove pollen and propolis, and processed to extend shelf life and create a uniform appearance. Raw honey, harvested cold, minimally processed, with pollen and propolis intact, is biologically active. It contains glucose oxidase, which generates hydrogen peroxide in the presence of wound fluid. It contains propolis, a resinous compound with potent antimicrobial and antifungal properties. It contains pollen that, when consumed locally, gradually builds tolerance to regional allergens. And it contains phenolic compounds, flavonoids and phenolic acids, with measurable antioxidant activity.
The Amish keep bees. They harvest their own honey. They use it in baking, stirred in after cooling when possible, and fermented preparations, and as a sweetener that comes with nutritional function rather than just calories. Small batches, local sourcing, everything connected to the land they live on.
Food 14, dried and preserved fruits. Before refrigeration defined food preservation, the Amish dried everything that could be dried. Apples, plums, cherries, apricots, elderberries, sliced thin, dried slowly in warm air or low heat, stored in cloth bags through winter. Drying concentrates. It concentrates natural sugars, yes, but it also concentrates polyphenol, fiber, and minerals that were already present in the fresh fruit. Dried prunes deserve specific mention. Research from Florida State University, a randomized controlled trial over 12 months, found that postmenopausal women eating 10 prunes daily maintained significantly higher bone density than a control group taking calcium supplements. The phenolic compounds in prunes specifically inhibit osteoclast activity, the cellular mechanism of bone resorption.
Amish grandmothers kept jars of dried plums through every winter. They didn't know about osteoclasts. They didn't know about phenolic compounds. They knew that women who ate their dried fruit stayed strong and didn't break. Generations of observation proved it. Science eventually caught up. Food 15. Naturally raised pork. Whole animal. The Amish relationship with the animals they raise is not sentimental. It is also not cruel. It is purposeful. Every animal has a role. Every animal is cared for properly. And when the time comes, every part of that animal is used. Because waste is not stewardship, and stewardship is foundational to how the Amish live.
Pasture-raised pork from small Amish farms is nutritionally distinct from industrial commercial pork in several measurable ways. Pigs raised on pasture with access to sunlight have significantly higher vitamin D levels in their fat. They have higher omega-3 to omega-6 ratios, important because the chronic inflammatory state that underlies most modern disease is driven in part by extreme omega-6 excess from industrial meat and seed oils. They are raised without growth hormones and without the routine antibiotic use that characterizes industrial pork production, antibiotic use that contributes to gut microbiome disruption in consumers and to broader antibiotic resistance at a population level. The Amish use every part. Roasts, chops, organ meats, house-made sausage with natural casings and herbs, lard from the fat. The bones go into broth. Nothing exits the food chain unused.
That is not just an economic choice. That is a nutritional philosophy. Complete nutrition from complete animals, raised completely, the way humans have eaten for most of recorded history.
Food 16, apple cider vinegar woven into food. We've discussed apple cider vinegar as a standalone remedy. But in Amish cooking, it doesn't sit on a shelf waiting to be taken medicinally, it is woven into the fabric of how food is prepared. Salad dressings made with raw ACV and raw honey. Pickle brines built on it. Marinades. Coleslaw dressings. Sauces. The result is that the benefits, improved insulin sensitivity, enhanced mineral absorption due to the acidic environment, antimicrobial properties, and digestive enzyme stimulation, are delivered continuously through food rather than as an afterthought.
The Amish don't separate food from medicine. They never built that wall. In their understanding, and in the understanding of virtually every traditional food culture before industrialization, the kitchen is the pharmacy. The garden is the supplement aisle. And every meal is an opportunity to either strengthen the body or weaken it. That philosophy, practiced daily over a lifetime, is worth more than any prescription. Food 17. Eating together. Here we are. Food 17. And I want you to think about the last time you sat down to a full meal, not eaten over a sink or in front of a screen or in a car, with people you actually love, where the conversation was real, where nobody checked their phone, where you tasted what you were eating and weren't already thinking about what came next. For most people watching this, that's a distant memory, or a holiday, or something that happens occasionally and feels slightly unusual when it does. For the Amish, that is every single meal, every day, multiple times a day.
The research on shared meals and health outcomes is now substantial and consistent. A 2017 systematic review published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health found that regular family meals are associated with higher diet quality, better mental health outcomes, reduced risk of disordered eating, and stronger social cohesion across all age groups. The mechanism is partly behavioral, people eat more slowly in company, allowing satiety signals to reach the brain before overconsumption occurs. It is partly neurological. The parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest and digestion, is activated by social safety. When you eat in a calm, connected state, digestion is more efficient, nutrient absorption is higher, and cortisol, which suppresses digestive function, is lower. It is also, in ways that science is still quantifying, deeply human. We are social animals. Shared meals are how cultures transmit values, how families build trust, how the nervous system learns that the world is safe enough to be present in.
The Amish pray before meals. They sit with multiple generations. They talk about real things. They take time. And when the meal is finished, they don't scatter to separate screens. They sit together a little longer. That is the 17th forgotten food. The ingredient that makes every other food on this list work better. The one that costs nothing, requires nothing to purchase, and yet is somehow the first thing we sacrificed when modern life decided that speed was more valuable than depth. You can start eating raw garlic tomorrow. You can make bone broth this weekend. You can find a sourdough starter and begin the process. All of that matters, and all of it will change how you feel. But if you eat those things alone, rushed, distracted, half present, you will still be missing something. The table is where it comes together. Sit down at yours. 17 foods. 17 things that built strong bodies, long lives, and deep health across generations before the modern food industry decided that convenience was more profitable than nutrition. You now know what most people don't. Not because you're smarter, because you chose to pay attention when it mattered. That's who this channel exists for. Not for people who want quick fixes. For people who are done being told what to eat by systems that profit from keeping them sick, tired, and dependent. For people who want to rebuild something real in their bodies, in their kitchens, and their families. If that's you, subscribe right now, because we are only getting started. We're going deeper into ancestral food wisdom, forgotten preparation methods, and the nutritional knowledge that built civilizations before industry decided it was obsolete.
Save this video. Come back to it. Pick 2 or 3 foods from this list and begin with those. Don't try to change everything overnight. Sustainable change happens at the edge of your current habits, not 100 miles past them. Share this with someone who needs it. Someone who's been tired for years and doesn't know why. Someone who's been eating what they were told to eat and feeling worse every decade. The answers were never complicated. They were just forgotten.
Now you remember. Build something with it. Stay rooted.